Hi, my name is Lily McGraw, and I'm the director of the documentary you are about to watch called Given a Voice. Unfortunately, no, this is not the first film or documentary about sexual assault. While watching my documentary, I really want the viewer to try not to separate themselves from the stories. Maybe this has happened to somebody you love. Maybe it was your mother, your sister, your aunt, maybe a cousin, your best friend, your wife. Maybe this has happened to you. My hope is for the viewer to watch this and to gain an understanding and the ability to heal, and also to know that you have support. I'm so grateful for the people that helped me bring this idea to life. I also want to thank the brave women behind these stories and the amazing actresses that gave them a voice.
My name is Jasmine, and I was 16 when I was sexually assaulted.
My name is Penny, and I was 17 years old when I was sexually assaulted.
My name is Riley, and I was 14 when I was sexually assaulted.
My name is Scarlett, and I was raped when I was 18 years old.
He was my friend, my boyfriend, someone I trusted. The honeymoon phase in our relationship felt never ending. We shared many firsts, our family and friends got along well. And I thought this person was going to be the one for me. I couldn't have predicted how things would have changed.
He was a family member and someone I considered to be my best friend. I thought I could trust him with anything, but I think that blinded me to what was really happening until it was too late.
He was my boyfriend for a short time in high school. He was manipulative and controlling, and he constantly made me doubt myself.
I met him in high school. He was about 2 years younger than me. We kind of drifted apart, though, and didn't talk as much. When we started talking again, it kind of became a friends with benefits situation.
We were both juniors in high school, and a lot of pressure around having sex started to build up in our lives. It started with our friends joking about how we were both virgins, and that developed into a bigger problem. We caved into that peer pressure and decided to have sex for the first time. Physically, it didn't work because neither of us knew what we were doing, and that caused more tension between us. He started taking his frustrations out on me, and he would say, "It's not working because you're not stretched out enough." At the time, I didn't know any better, so I felt like it was my fault, and I felt guilty because of that.
I think everything started to go south when he moved into the same house as me. At the time, it was exciting that my best friend was going to be around 24/7, but I didn't realize this would give him easy access to me. At the same time the abuse started, I was constantly in a depressed state. I developed a drinking habit because I desperately wanted to escape from feeling that way. He took advantage of me while I was suffering, and it got worse and worse over time.
It started with backhanded comments and judgments about how I was living my life. So when I got a tattoo, he was furious. He told me that when I get it removed, I can't be depressed about when it leaves a big, ugly scar, knowing about my past with self-harm. From there, it just got worse.
I knew he wasn't a great guy from the beginning, but at the time I was dating around, so it didn't really matter to me. He wasn't necessarily nice, but he wasn't mean either.
As time passed, we started doing everything but sex, and I rarely felt comfortable with what was going on. I tried to tell him I was uncomfortable, and he would just say things like, "It's okay," and "Don't worry." We were on vacation with his family once, and his parents were sleeping in a bed 4 feet away from ours. I was half awake when he rolled on top of me and started to use my thighs to please himself. I told him no, and he continued until he finished. And when he got off, I told him I had said no. He was so unfazed when he apologized and went back to sleep. I excused it at the time because he was my boyfriend and he's allowed to touch me.
It started with flirting, which I wrote off immediately because he was a family member. From there, it progressed into more. It started with light touching over the clothes, then under the clothes. He forced me into penetrative sex, and anal penetration, and I was so out of it, I didn't even realize what was happening.
It started when he would sleep over at my house. He would touch me, start fingering me while I was asleep. And I didn't realize I hadn't consented to it. Sometimes I was half awake and I wasn't aware of what was going on. I would tell him no, I would tell him to stop, but he wouldn't.
One night, I snuck into his house to avoid his parents. This was a common thing we did. We would hang out and then do stuff, and then I would leave. This night, I hadn't really planned on doing anything because I had just gotten over a painful UTI. But as the night progressed, we started to do stuff. Nothing leading to sex yet.
The most traumatizing assault happened after we broke up. I invited him over to my home, and at that point I was so desperate into losing my virginity because I didn't want to graduate high school without having sex. I knew it would hurt, and I said, and I quote, "If it hurts, you don't have to stop." I quickly backed out of that, and he started to yell at me for what I had said. That's when he forced his fingers inside of me, and I started crying. He immediately stopped, started to hold me and apologize, but at that point it was too late. I haven't seen or spoken to him since.
The one time I was sober, he was trying to force me into oral sex with him, and I tried to fight him, and I tried to get away, but he was stronger than me. He pulled me back to him by my ankles, and I couldn't get away. For 2 years, he did anything and everything he could do to me. And most of the time, I wasn't sober, or I was dissociating while it was happening. I couldn't escape him.
I started to feel really uncomfortable and like I wasn't safe anymore. But regardless of these feelings, we still started to have sex. I got on top, and it was really painful, and I told him I wanted to stop. But he just kept on saying, "It's okay, it's just me, and it's fine." And I just remember in a really dead tone saying no. And he just kept on going, so my nose just got quieter. I tried to get off of him multiple times, but he kept on pulling me back harder each time. I eventually just went numb. and just sat there. I started to disassociate while it was happening. When he was done, he kind of just tossed me aside and walked over to the couch. I just sat there, waiting for him to say something, but he didn't. So I got up and left and told him I was leaving, and he still didn't say anything. We haven't spoken since.
My best friend was the one who had to tell me I was assaulted. For weeks I was angry. I blamed myself and I blamed the world around me for not preparing me. I was never taught about consent or what was right or wrong in a relationship. At that time, I was terrified of ever being intimate with anyone. I felt guilty for being upset because it wasn't like I was raped, but my friend reassured me that it was still assault and that my feelings were valid.
It had been 3 months since I cut him off, and I was lying in bed one day when it all hit me. I had been raped. I put the pieces of what happened together, and it was an awful feeling. I was bedridden. I lost weight. I completely cut myself off from the world. I didn't want to believe that this person I had looked up to would do this to me. I wanted to blame myself. It felt like it was my fault.
It didn't feel real to me. I didn't think it actually happened. And I somehow was just making it up in my mind. Everything was just numb. It wasn't until I told my 2 closest friends that I really realized it. One was super supportive and told me that it was a sexual assault. The other one's silent, and they usually have something to say, some sort of advice. So when they were silent, I knew how real it was. My brain just wanted to block out everything. I didn't want to feel any of the emotions at all.
I ignored what happened for a long time after. I was scared it wasn't considered rape because I was on top. When a friend of mine went through a similar situation, I found myself relating to everything she was feeling. It became clear to me that I wasn't over it. The more I ignored it, the more it kept popping up.
Over time, I told my close family and friends, and they were all really supportive. I didn't take legal action because I had heard of sexual assault and domestic abuse cases first-handedly, and nothing came of it. There was no proof, and I wasn't raped, so it felt like a lost cause. Nothing would have happened to him.
I kept this to myself for a long time. I didn't take it to the police because I didn't want to face that personal embarrassment of being abused by a family member. I thought coming forward about it would ruin my family, and I didn't want to relive it again. It's been 3 years since it happened, and only a few people know the full extent of it. My own mother knows some of what happened, and although I didn't tell her who it was, I think she knows.
I tried to tell my school what happened, and nothing came of it. The first officer that I talked to asked if I had any proof. I told him that I didn't, and he told me that there was nothing he could do for me. The second officer I spoke to apologized for the first one's behavior, even though he was much more understanding and kind. Still nothing happened. My ex's locker got vandalized at school because people started to find out what happened. His father threatened to sue me for spreading lies about his son. My own family has let me down. I came to them about this, and my father looked at me and said, "Boys will be boys."
I called one of my closest friends on the way home crying once I had realized what had just happened. She was able to calm me down and validate my feelings even though I was in a state of panic. Another one of my friends didn't really understand the situation, which actually really hurt my feelings because it made me feel like she didn't believe me. I later realized that it's because she's never been in a situation like that, and she's been persuaded by the media and society that rape is black and white. She now understands and supports me, but for a while it was actually really awkward between us. I didn't take any legal action because I didn't understand the laws of the state I was in. Because I was older, I could have been considered the rapist even though he raped me.
I don't think I'll ever fully be over it. With the help of my family, friends, and even loved ones who helped me through the intimacy, I get violent panic attacks. I feel guilty saying no to people, and I don't feel comfortable around most men. I feel powerless and angry, and I'm tired of feeling this way.
This has changed me fundamentally as a person. I am traumatized sexually because of what happened. I have little to no sex drive to other people. I suffer with health problems now because of what happened. I have PTSD, borderline personality disorder, and other problems I don't even understand yet. I don't remember who I was before all of this. But all I know now is I am an angry and bitter person. I am so fucking angry. And there is a pit of rage in my heart that I don't know if it will ever go away. Because of my experience, I am invested in sexual assault stigma, and I want to be involved so that this stops happening to other people.
These experiences broke me down. I was self-conscious. I apologized for everything, and I felt like anything I did, anything at all, was my fault. My trust in people, men in particular, was damaged. It feels terrible to feel at fault for something that you didn't even do.
I ignored my feelings for a while after it happened. I didn't think they were important enough to worry about. For a long time, I would doubt myself. I even began to question if I was raped. I had a therapist. a long time before this, and I was scared to tell her. I was finally able to, after about a year, and she validated my feelings and clarified that I was raped. Over time, I get less and less triggered when people talk about it, because I've realized I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor.
I remember a time where I thought the world of you. I loved you so much, and you disappointed me. You're a fucking coward, and you have to live with what you've done. I have no forgiveness in my heart for you.
To my longtime abuser, I wish I had the grace in my heart to forgive you, but I don't. I shouldn't have to forgive you for what you did. Fuck you. If you got hit by a car tomorrow, I would throw a party and I would dance.
You really fucked with my head, and you turned out to be just like your shitty father. You're fucked in the head, and you should be medicated for it.
I wouldn't say anything to him. It wouldn't change the fact that he did what he did. And I wouldn't want to give him the power to invalidate my feelings. He's not worth it.
It's not your fault.
It is not your fault.
It's not your fault.
Reach out to your trusted loved ones, and they will always support you and validate your feelings.
Don't feel shameful about what happened. It might feel like the end of the world now, but one day you won't even remember their name.
Whoever hurt you is an evil and sick human being, and never excuse anything they ever did.
Don't try and hide the emotions you're feeling. Any type of therapy at all is a great resource.
No matter what the situation, you will get through it. Through all the struggle and emotion, you will learn to love yourself again.
I know that going on doesn't feel like an option sometimes, and it feels like your abuser has ruined you, but they didn't. You are far from ruined. You are a whole person, even if it feels like they took something away from you.
You're not alone in this battle. You deserve to cope and to move on.
And even if there are people who don't believe you, there are hundreds of people who will. There are people who will help you on the days where it feels like you are falling apart. There's nothing shameful about being assaulted. They are the shameful individuals for doing this to you.